Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Samuel Akem here, and I'm back with another one. I appreciate you guys for tapping into another Akem's analysis. Big Sky Football builds legends, and so do we. At L&M Fine Jewelry, we help Montana couples create unforgettable moments, from championship-worthy diamonds to custom pieces that tell your story. This season, make your legacy sparkle. Located on American Way in Missoula and Main Street in Kalispell. L&M Fine Jewelry is the official jeweler of Akem's analysis. They have been amazing to me and my wife, Landy and Michael. They do a great job. Please go check them out on American Way in Missoula, or if you're in Kalispell or in that area, go check them out on Main Street in Kalispell. L&M Fine Jewelry. Big week in college football. Not necessarily a huge week in college football, but week 4 is coming up. Excuse me. So we got a week 4 preview show for you today. Some of the games we'll be looking at are Montana State. Actually, I'm too far up on my notes. Sorry. We'll be looking at Montana State versus Mercyhurst. I saw Montana State and San Diego on there, and I was like, that's not right. Montana State and Mercyhurst. We'll be looking at Montana versus Indiana State. We'll be looking at Idaho versus San Jose State. NAU versus Incarnate Word, Sac State versus Central Arkansas. I think that could be a good game. NAU versus Incarnate Word is going to be a good game. And then we got UC Davis off the bye week, looking to get another dub. They played a close game against Southern Utah last year. So they're playing UC Davis versus Southern Utah. That's the other game we'll get into. So stay tuned in for the entire video. Please leave a like. Please hit the subscribe button. Leave me a comment down below, and we will get straight into it. Okay, so we're looking at Montana versus Indiana State. Let's break down the numbers of Indiana State first. Offensively, they're averaging 26 points per game. They're averaging on the ground 150 rush yards per game. Through the air, they're averaging 163 passing yards per game. They've thrown 1 interception this season. Defensively, they've picked the ball off 3 times. But honestly, overall, their offense is averaging 313 yards per game. If we look at the individual statistics, their starting quarterback, Elijah Owens, is currently completing 75% of his passes. He's 28 for 37. He's thrown 3 touchdowns. He's thrown 1 interception. He's got a pretty good passer rating. He looks like a good player. I kind of want to wonder if this guy's injured or not, because he's only played 2 games. And if you look at their game-by-game breakdown, they've played 3 games. So they lost 73-0 to Indiana. They won 38-14 against Eastern Illinois, and they won 41-24 against McKendree. So we know, and I understand that it's Indiana State, but looking at the numbers, they beat Eastern Illinois, who, and if I'm not mistaken, I don't want to pull up the Eastern Illinois. I'm not going to pull that up, but either way, they're 2-1. So they're. I think a lot of people want to look past this game. As Montana fans, people want to look past this game and look at Idaho. But I don't think you can do that with this Indiana State team. And I think given some of the issues that you've seen with Montana in terms of their offensive line play, in terms of their ability to stop the run at times, I mean, they've been spotty in places. But I think for the most part, one thing you did get settled up is the fact that Ayat can play, and he can play in the clutch. He can make plays when asked to, because he did that for 2 straight drives to finish that North Dakota game. And that was a good ranked opponent. They had a lot of weapons that they could throw at you, and their defense was firing on all cylinders. It seemed like the offensive line couldn't protect Ayat at all, and he was under pressure a lot towards the end of the game, and he still made the throws. So I think that can give you some calmness about this game coming in this Indiana State game. But I, as somebody looking at this game and looking at this team being 2-1, looking at the games they've won, how they've won, they won 38-14 against Eastern Illinois. They won 41-24 against McKendree. I think McKendree's like D2, D3 NAIA. I'm not 100% sure, so you guys can let me know. Defensively, opponents are scoring 37 points a game on Indiana State, but take that with a grain of salt, because obviously Indiana put up 73 on them. So that's an outlier. Obviously, their points per game are probably an outlier too. They're averaging 26 points per game on offense. But if you look at the game-by-game breakdown, they scored 38 on Eastern Illinois. They scored 41 on McKendree. And they scored 0 on Indiana. So that's going to drop their average, obviously. But I think they're probably around that 30 to 35 points per game average, which is not bad at all. 37 points, giving up 37 points, take that with a grain of salt. Rushing, teams are averaging 175 rushing yards per game on them, and then through the air, teams are averaging 239 yards per game on them. Not bad at all. Not bad at all. they've only thrown one interception, though, is what I'm seeing right here, which I thought was correct. Yeah, they've only thrown one interception. So in terms of the passing game, which is something that I think, Montana did good against Central Washington. I don't think they did take the ball away last week. Actually, they did on that interception. So one thing I want to see from Montana this week that I haven't seen in the first two games is their ability to rush the passer. I don't think Montana had a sack in this last game against North Dakota. I think they had 1 or 2 sacks against Central Washington in their first game. I want to see them get 3 to 4 sacks this week. I want to see them be able to rush the passer. I want to see them be able to affect the passer. Also, I want to see a clean game through and through from Montana. I want to see them be buttoned up. I don't want to see any interceptions. Obviously, things happen, but I wanted them to play a clean game. I want Ayat to play a clean game. He was much more efficient not much more efficient, but he was more efficient last week than he was against Central Washington. Completed 64% of his passes. And a lot of those completions were in the clutch when it mattered. I think his first half stats really did not do him justice. I think if you isolate Ayat's stats for the second half of that game, it's a much different look of that game. But that doesn't matter. You're moving on, and you're looking at Indiana State, looking at some of the players who could be effective in this game for Indiana State. Their leading rusher is Ples Lawrence, who has rushed for 180. Well, he's netted 154 rushing yards, 3 touchdowns. He's averaging 51 yards per game. He's averaging 4 yards a carry. Their second leading rusher, who is Elijah Owens, who I believe is also their starting quarterback, is averaging 3.6 yards a carry. He's totaled 112 rushing yards while also passing for 317 yards. So it doesn't seem like this team has been super successful passing or running. Their quarterback only has 300 passing yards, and they're 3 games into the season. That's an average of 100 yards per game. When it says it here on their breakdown, it says he only played 2 games. Okay, that makes sense. So the quarterback only played in 2 games. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's injured. I haven't seen any news about his injury or anything like that. But clearly Elijah Owens is not the guy to expect. I don't know. I don't know what to expect. Who's going to run out there? Actually, we'll look him up right now and see if there's any information on him. Let's see if we can find anything. Let's see. Any say Elijah Owens? Would they have dropped something about him after the game? No. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's hurt or if he's healthy. It does say on their school website, on their athletics website, that he's only played 2 games though. So take that for what it is. Do I expect to see him? I don't know. Will we see him? I don't know, because it also says their backup quarterback, Keegan Patterson, has only played 2 games as well. And then the only quarterback that's played all 3 games is number 8, who's Rashad Rochelle. I don't even know if he's a quarterback. He might have just thrown a pass. But they said he has played 3 games. At least on here, it says he's played 3 games. I don't know why Elijah Owens has only played 2. I don't know why Keegan Patterson has only played 2, but I'll be interested to see. I really want to go more so by the game numbers, or by the team numbers, and see. And I really want to see what Montana looks like. This is a 2-1 football team, another Missouri Valley football team. Obviously, a lot of times, a lot of people have beat up on Indiana State, so I don't know what to expect from this Indiana State team. They've played a couple of games. They are 2-1. They've only lost to an FBS opponent, so they're undefeated in the FCS, which is really a big barometer that people look for playoff eligibility. Obviously, we're super early in the season, but Indiana State, what are they going to bring to the table this Saturday? That's what we want to see. But what are my keys to the victory for Montana? My keys to victory for Montana are their ability to rush the passer, their ability to affect the passer. I think they did that at a really high level last week. I mean, that game is so weird. That North Dakota game is so weird because they did get beat over the top. They did get beat over the top multiple times. But when you look back at the numbers, their quarterback completed under 50% of his passes. And it's so crazy too, because it's very similar to that North Dakota State game in the semifinals of the FCS playoffs in 2023 when Montana beat North Dakota State. Cam Miller had only completed 40% of his passes, but the passes he completed were big time completions, especially in that fourth quarter, especially on that game time drive that they tied the game and sent it in overtime. But man, I want to see Montana be able to rush the passer. I'd love to see them get some sacks. Offensively, I want to see that offensive line be cleaned up. I want to see the pass protection be good. I want to see them be able to run the ball, and I want to see them be able to run the ball effectively. This team is giving up an average of 175 yards per game on the ground, which honestly isn't that crazy. Average 4.4 yards a carry is what people are averaging on them. Total yards gained is 607 yards. So I mean, they're not really large. I'll say so. Net yards gained is 527, but when you look at the game by game average, they're not really giving up a ton on the ground. Let me actually go game by game and see what they gave up on the ground to Eastern Illinois. And now, obviously, too, another thing that this makes you want to think about is the fact that, like, they haven't played anybody. So, from that standpoint, they played Eastern Illinois, but they played McKendree. So, they've only really played one FCS opponent. But that one FCS opponent rushed for 89. Eastern Illinois rushed for 89 yards on them. And then if we go Indiana, I'm sure Indiana probably rushed for like over 300 yards on the ground for them. Indiana rushed for 306 yards on the ground. And Brock Riddle was the starting quarterback for that Indiana game. So Keegan Patterson also played. I don't know. I can't tell. They have it separated by completion percentage. Like the person who's ahead is the highest. But Keegan Patterson played in that game and Brock Riddle played in that game. So I think from the standpoint of expecting what quarterback to expect to run out there, I think it would probably be one of those two, Brock Riddle or Keegan Patterson. It says Brock Riddle's only played in one game, and that's probably because he only played in that he probably only played in that Indiana game. And that's probably, I would guess, probably out of necessity. But then you got Keegan Patterson, who's played in 2 games. He's 19 for 33. He's completing 57% of his passes, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions on the season. But I don't know. Let's see what year Keegan Patterson is a redshirt junior. Brock Riddle is a redshirt freshman. So I'm sure Brock Riddle probably got in there late in that game. I would probably expect Keegan Patterson to be running out there on Saturday. Yeah, when you look at the 2 games Keegan Patterson has played in, it's Eastern Illinois and or in Indiana. McKendree, the Elijah Owens has played in McKendree and Eastern Illinois, so he must have got hurt in that Eastern Illinois game. And then you got Brock Riddle, who's only played in the Indiana game, and he only threw 4 passes for 25 yards. And then let's look at this Rochelle kid. He's a senior, but he's a receiver, so definitely he threw a pass. He was 1 for 1, 293 quarterback rating, no touchdown though. How many yards? 23-yard pass. There we go. But Indiana State, my keys to the game. Rush the passer. Montana needs to be able to rush the passer. Number 2, I want to see the offensive line. I want to see the offensive line cleaned up. I would love to see them be able to pass protect. I would love to be able to see them be able to run the ball at will. Like, I want Montana to be able to run the ball when they want to run the ball, not when they can run the ball. If they can run the ball, I want them to be able to run the ball no matter what. Like, we got to run it on 4th and 1, they're going to run it. When they got to run it on 3rd and 1, they're going to run it. When everybody knows they're going to run it, they're going to run it. I need to see that offensive line. I need to see improvement from the offensive line. So overall, that point is I want to see offensive line improvement. The second point is I want to see them be able to rush the passer. The third point is I would love to see Montana get some takeaways. They took the ball away once last week. They took the ball away twice in week 1. It would be nice if they could get a couple of takeaways this week. I think that secondary is moving in the right direction. I think Keon Loud is the best player on that secondary. But I want to see their ability and how well they're able to take away the ball. I'd love to see, tighter coverage for an improved coverage for Kinzel Lawler and Prince Ford. I think those are a couple of the guys that have struggled for the secondary of Montana. When you think about that game last week, Prince Ford gave up 2 touchdowns, one on the post and one on the play that I broke down on Twitter if you guys saw it, but they scored a touchdown on that. That was also on Prince Ford. It was a weird play. It was a schemed up play that they schemed up specifically for that situation that point in the game. But it was on Prince Ford. And then Kinzel Lawler gave up the touchdown in the end zone, in the south end zone by the student section on the out route. So those are some things that I want to see from this team this week. We will see. I think when looking at the line earlier this week, Montana opened up as a 26.5 point favorite. The over-under is 55.5. So yeah, I think that's a big line. And I think based on what we've seen from this team this year, I think that's a very big line. 26.5 points. I think they don't think anything of Indiana State, but based on what Indiana State has done so far this season, they're 2-1. They've only lost to Indiana. So I don't know. I don't think fans should sleep on this Indiana State game. I don't think they should sleep on this Indiana State team. I think one thing you have, not necessarily playing in your favor, because I don't want to say that an injury is playing in your favor, but they seem to be working with a 2nd or 3rd string quarterback. So from that standpoint, I think it bodes well for Montana, given that the guy that they were operating with probably for the most part of training camp and the most of the season is not going to be the one running the offense. So look out for that. But when you look at some of the other players, I've talked about their leading rusher, Ples Lawrence. He's rushed for 154 yards. When you look at their leading receiver, he's got Rashad Rochelle. He's got 111 yards on the season on 10 catches. Their next best receiver has 100. Ples Lawrence, who is a running back. I'm almost their running back is their second leading receiver. He's got 109 yards on 6 catches, 2 touchdowns. He's averaging 18.17 yards a catch. So it doesn't seem like offensively this team has like a high-flying offense. Their total offense is 313 yards per game. I don't know what that ranks in the FCS, but they've scored 10 touchdowns so far. They've had 15 touchdowns scored on them, and they're giving up 414 yards of offense a game. So that's a lot, but obviously that Indiana State game is a majority of what that number is. So that's what I'm looking for Montana this week. You guys let me know in the comments what you guys think about Indiana State and Montana. They're going to be playing in Missoula this week. So you guys let me know what you think about that, and I will move on. Okay, next we got Montana State and Mercyhurst, and this might surprise some of you guys, but I think this is going to be a closer game than a lot of people think. The line this week opened up at 31.5. Montana State is a 31.5 point favorite over Mercyhurst, and I think that's far too high. I think that's far too high. And I'm not even saying that to disrespect Montana State. I think Montana State is the better team. I think Montana State will win this game. But I don't think Montana State's going to win this game by 31.5 points. Give me just a second. I definitely think Montana State's going to win this game, but man, I think 31.5 points is aggressive. Super aggressive. I think this could be a closer game than a lot of people think. I think it's going to be within 2 to 3 scores. Now, obviously, that's still a good beat for Montana State. If they win by 2 to 3 scores, you'll take that every day of the week, twice on Sunday. But I think this team is a team that can challenge them. Now, when you look at the numbers for Montana State, and I had some numbers on here for Montana State. Through 3 games, Montana State is averaging 158 yards per game on the ground. That is not like the Montana State teams that we have seen of old. Now, obviously, just like I was saying with the Indiana State team and how they played Indiana, understand that Montana State played Indiana State, or Montana State played Oregon. And I think that Oregon game has really jaded a lot of their numbers. I think you have to take all of the Montana State numbers with a grain of salt right now because of the fact that they played that Oregon game. What did they put up? 3 points in that game? Maybe 10 points in that game. Like, they didn't score a lot. They didn't have a lot of offense. Justin Lamson was forced to throw the ball a lot. But when you look at the numbers for Montana State, they're averaging 26 points a game offensively. They're averaging 158 rushing yards a game, like I just talked about, 4.3 yards a carry. Through the air, and I would love somebody to go through the history and go through the stats. When was the last time this happened? Montana State is averaging more yards through the air than they are on the ground currently, and I can't think of a Montana State team, at least in recent history, that has ever been the case. I can't think of, sorry, somebody was calling me. I can't think of a team where that's been the case at all lately. So 219 yards per game passing, 158 average yards per game on the ground. That's where they're at. 3 passing touchdowns, 5 rushing touchdowns. Those are by the numbers for Montana State. When you look at the defensive numbers, they're giving up 32 points a game defensively. Oregon plays a part into that. They're giving up 147 yards per game on the ground, which honestly is not that bad, especially given that they played that Oregon game. They're doing a really good job of being able to stop the run. I'll say that about this Montana State team. They have done a phenomenal job. When you even think of that South Dakota State game, and you think about what Julius Lothridge had did the week before. I think he rushed for 150 the week before on Sac State. Now, obviously, I think Sac State and Montana State are not, they're currently not close. If Sac State and Montana State played 10 times, I think Montana State would win that game probably 8 out of 10 times currently. But they've been doing a really good job of stopping the run. Through the air, they're giving up 190 yards per game through the air. Looking at the total offense, they're averaging 377 yards per offense. Montana State's offense is. Defensively, they're averaging 337.3 yards per game defensively. So, I mean, it's kind of however you want to look at it. You can look at it that way. But I think their defense is playing good ball right now. I think the Montana State defense is playing good ball right now. If you go to the game-by-game numbers, they gave up 59 to Oregon. They gave up 30 to South Dakota State, when in regulation they had only given up 17, 2 touchdowns scored in overtime. And then they only gave up 7 to San Diego. So, I mean, this is a defense that's playing well. They played really well against South Dakota. I would say they played really well against South Dakota State. Obviously, they started the season 0-2. They got their first victory last week. but the run game, I think the run game has really been a struggle. I talked to some people that are close to the situation at Montana State, and obviously a lot of people know about this, but they've been moving a lot of people around on that offensive line. They've been moving a ton of people around on the offensive line. It hasn't been a pretty situation for them, and I think that's kind of what has been affecting their run game. We haven't really seen Adam Jones break out. We haven't really seen Julius Davis break out. I mean, looking at the numbers right now, Lamson is their second leading rusher with 116 rushing yards. Adam Jones, through 3 games, does not even have 100 rushing yards. He's got 31 attempts, 95 gained yards. He's only lost 4 yards. His net rushing yards is 91 yards a game. He's averaging 2.9 yards a carry. That is criminal, man. Justin Lamson averaging 3 yards a carry, and Julius Davis is averaging 7 yards a carry. So, Adam Jones currently is not having the season a lot of people expected him to have. Obviously, they've played a lot of stiff competition early on. Oregon, South Dakota State. I mean, I don't know if you expect him to break out for 100, 200 yards in that game. If he is who a lot of people say he is, I think that's something that you can expect. But I don't think he's having the season that a lot of people expected currently. That doesn't mean he can't turn it around. That doesn't mean that, if and when they get their offensive line figured out, that will change around. But it seems like Julius Davis is really their guy right now. But defensively, let's look at the defensive stats for Montana State. Looking at the team stats, I told you the numbers, what they're giving up. Takeaways, let's see how many takeaways they've had total this season. So interceptions, I'm trying to find them right now. So sorry. Give me just a sec. Oh yeah, so they've only taken the ball away. They've thrown 1 interception. I think the team, they've thrown in 1 interception. They have no interceptions. They haven't gotten any interceptions. And then fumbles, I can't see fumbles lost. They've lost 3 fumbles. They've fumbled the ball 3 times. They've lost 2. They've lost 2 of them. And that's actually their team. There's been 3 fumbles. They've recovered 2 of them, I think. Looking at their opponent numbers, there's 3 and 2 too. So I think they fumbled the ball 3 times and they've recovered 2. That's what the number says here. That's what I got. But my keys to victory for Montana State, I don't think it's that confusing. I think they need to get back to what their bread and butter is. I think they need to run the ball. I think they need to focus on that. Because when you look at the game last week, and this was so surprising to me when I was recapping the San Diego game this past week. You look at the numbers. Let's go to the individual statistics. They only rushed for 218 rushing yards. And Julius Davis had 83 rushing yards. Adam Jones had 46 rushing yards. Lamson had 21 rushing yards. So through their first 3 rushers, I don't even think that's over 150 rushing yards through their top 3 guys, which is Lamson, Adam Jones, and Julius Davis. Not even over 150. I mean, I thought I was in the minority when I said that this team would be passing more than they would rushing this year. And honestly, after the South Dakota State game, I didn't know necessarily, after watching Justin Lamson get 20 carries, I didn't know if that would be the case. I think they must have figured something out in that South Dakota State game. Because it seems like they have leaned more into the passing. Let's go back to the South Dakota State stats, and let's look at their individual stats. They threw for 139 in that game. They rushed for 210 in that game. So after that game, I was thinking, maybe they are going to rush the ball more than they pass the ball. I don't know. Maybe it was something San Diego was doing. Maybe San Diego was packing the box, and Montana State, for the first time when a team is packing the box, is not able to run the ball. I think every time you've seen a team put 7, 6, 7, 8 guys in the box, no matter what, they're still going to be able to run the ball because that's Montana State, and that's what they do. I don't know. My keys to victory for them, they got to be able to run the ball. Got to be able to run the ball. Must be able to run the ball. I mean, and they're going to be able to run the ball. Montana State is always able to run the ball. I want to see them have a 300-yard rushing game. I would love to see Montana State have a 300-yard rushing game. Get back to that bread and butter. Get back to, because the thing that I think is the biggest part about this whole point about the run game for Montana State, I feel like their team is currently constructed as a team that wants to run the ball. I think the offense is kind of shaped around that fact. I think the offensive line is kind of shaped around that fact. I think the running backs that they have are kind of shaped around that fact. I think even Justin Lamson as a player is kind of shaped in that mold of, you need to be able to run the ball as well as a quarterback. And I think because of what Tommy Mellott was able to do and because of the things that they built there, I think they're a running team first. So they got to get back to running the ball. I think their defense is playing at a pretty damn good level. But I would love to see them take away the ball. The defense of Montana State would love to see them get some takeaways. And then when you look at their offense, when you look at their defense, I don't know how well they've been able to get to the passer. Let me go look at their numbers and look at some of their stats in terms of how, went too far back. let's look at some of their numbers and see how they've been able to rush the passer. They've got 5 sacks as a team. Montana State does. So their opponents have gotten 8 sacks on them for 57 yards, which is it's honestly not surprising, because when you think back to, at least when I think back to some of the more recent Montana State teams, they've always been good run blocking. But pass blocking, I think, is where they take a back seat, because I think they are putting so much effort into the run blocking that sometimes the pass blocking can go on the back burner. I mean, I think that might have been what hurt Marcus Weir. Marcus Weir was a phenomenal run blocker, but when you think about somebody who run blocks, the pass protection, I think, gets forgotten. And I think that's kind of what's happened over time with Montana State, with all the emphasis on running the ball. The pass protection isn't necessarily the key that you're looking for. But I want to see Montana State run the ball. I want to see them take the ball away. I would love to see them rush the passer, get more sacks. They got more sacks than Montana, and Montana has not sacked the ball, has not gotten a ton of sacks in 3 games this year. Obviously, with this Montana State team, you must understand that they played Oregon, so their numbers are dictated by that. But when you look at it game by game, they haven't gotten back to that Montana State rushing team that you have come to know them to be, the team that you have come to know them to be in. And it starts to make me think, is Montana State gonna be the same team that they have been in more recent history without the effect of the running game? I'm not saying they won't be. I'm asking the question, will they be as effective without the run game? Because I think that's been such a big part of their offense. Now, if Justin Lamson can be a prolific passer and he can be that for that Montana State offense, I think that's something. But I'm interested to see this game. I think this game, my main point about this Mercyhurst game, and I want to make this point, I think this game is going to be closer than a lot of people think. Let me look at the numbers for Mercyhurst. They're averaging 30 points per game, 140 rushing yards per game. Not very great, but they're averaging 323 passing yards per game. So from that standpoint, I think Mercyhurst is going to challenge Montana State's secondary. I think they're going to challenge those linebackers in zone coverage. I think that secondary and the passing defense of Montana State is going to get tested. I do. Sac State was tested. Mercyhurst played another close game against somebody else. I'm blanking on it right now, but Mercyhurst has been pushing teams to the limit, and obviously I think they're defeated right now, but Mercyhurst has been pushing teams to the limit. So I'm interested to see what the passing defense of Montana State is able to do. Adam Urena, or total offense for Mercyhurst, is 463 yards per game. One thing that I think does play well for Montana State within their run game, getting their run game back established, Sac State was able to get whatever the hell they wanted on the ground against Mercyhurst. I mean, absolutely no stopping them on the ground against Mercyhurst. Nothing. They rushed for 349 rushing yards. They have 5 rushing touchdowns. Obviously, Sac State in that offense and what they do, it's focused around the run game, same as Montana State. So I think this is a game where you could see Montana State's rushing offense burst back out. When you look at Mercyhurst's quarterback, Adam Urena, 313 yards per game, 67% completion percentage. He's thrown 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. You look at their top receiver, he's averaging 97 yards per game, 19 receptions, 293 yards, 15 yards a catch, 2 touchdowns. You look at their defense. They're 194.3 rushing yards per game. That's what they're giving up, which is not great. They're giving up 157 passing yards per game, which is pretty decent. That's pretty decent. If a team throws for 150 on you, I think as a defense, you see that as a win. So definitely giving up more on the ground than they are through the air. They're giving up 29 points per game offensively or defensively, which is not great. 54% completion percentage is what quarterbacks have completed against them, which also plays into that 157.67 passing yards per game. Their secondary is better than their run defense. Total defense, 352 yards per game, which is honestly right around where Montana State's average is right now. Total offense for Montana State is 377.3. So 352 yards per game for Mercyhurst, what they're giving up defensively. Montana State's got to take that up. I think Montana State needs to have a 400-yard offensive explosion game. 400-yard offensive explosion game. I think that's what we need to see from Montana State on Saturday. You guys can let me know what you think about this Mercyhurst team. What have you seen? Have you watched any of the games back? I think their quarterback is a good player. I don't know necessarily about the receivers. I think they Dylan Evans is obviously the top guy, but I think outside of Dylan Evans, I think it's kind of by committee, and I don't think their running back is like necessarily something to sneeze at. I don't think he's a super special player. I think they do it more through the air. I think they want to do it more through the air. I think that's where they've done most of their damage. But with that also, and it's so funny because when you think about training camp and what these defensive backs have been through, their passing defense has been better than their rushing defense. Teams are averaging almost 200 yards a game on the ground, and they're averaging 157, almost 160 through the air. Defensively, this team isn't great all around. They're giving up 350 yards a game, which is not great. I think if you look at Montana State, or not Montana State, but North Dakota State, I think they're giving up like 99 yards per game on like their average is like 99 yards a game on defense. I mean, North Dakota State is playing at a historic level right now. We got to say that right now, but we're talking about Montana State. Montana State, those are the numbers for Mercyhurst. So you guys let me know what you think about that down below, and I will move on. Okay, the next game we are going to be talking about is Idaho versus San Jose State. And I think Idaho could get the upset victory this week. I really do. Looking at the numbers for Idaho, they're averaging 22 points a game. Offensively, 200 yards per game on the ground, 220 yards per game on the ground. And I think that's really where Idaho's bread is buttered. They got a really good running back. I'm blanking on his name right now. Let me actually find him. Art Williams. Art Williams is their number one running back, and he's already up to 226 yards on the ground. He's averaging 75 yards per game. He's only had one rushing touchdown, but he's averaging 5 yards a carry. Josh Wood is averaging 9.8 yards a carry. Josh Wood is how this offense goes. Where Josh Wood goes, this team goes. Josh Wood is completing 65% of his passes this season. He's thrown one interception, 4 touchdowns, 433 passing yards. I mean, Josh Wood has been a really, really good player this year. And then their leading receiver right now is Ryan Hazaro. He's 159 yards through the air on 14 catches. He's averaging 53 yards per game, 2 touchdowns. But back to the team stats, 22 points per game for Idaho's offense, 220 yards per game on the ground. 22.3 points per game for Idaho's offense. 220 yards on the ground per game, 144 yards through the air. So passing has been a struggle at times. If you look at the game-by-game numbers for Josh Wood, it's been a little up and down. I think the consistency needs to show up a little bit more for me for Josh Wood. When you look at last week, he was let's go 2 weeks ago against St. Thomas. Against St. Thomas, I think he threw for, I'm going to have to pull it up. Against St. Thomas, he threw for like over 200 passing yards, but he also had over like 85 rushing yards. Against St. Thomas, he had 281 passing yards. But then you go against Utah Tech, the next game that next week, and he threw for, he was like under 50% or almost to 50% completion percentage. He was 14 for 25, 119 yards through the air, 1 touchdown. And he took 1 sack, but no interceptions. I mean, he didn't turn over the ball. And then on the ground, he rushed for 85 yards on the ground. There's not been a game yet this year that Josh Wood has not rushed for more than 80 yards on the ground. Against Washington, he had 100. Against St. Thomas, he had 85, 80, 87, somewhere around there. And then against Utah Tech, he had 85. So, I mean, this guy is a running quarterback. He can run the ball, and he does it at a high level. But what I need to see from him is consistency and being consistently accurate and being able to hit his receivers. I mean, I didn't necessarily watch that Utah Tech game back, but 14 for 25 is ugly. The numbers speak for themselves. 14 for 25 is not a pretty stat line. When you look at the San Jose State offense and look at their numbers, 326 yards per game. When you look at the passing, they're 246 yards per game through the air. When you look at their rushing, they're averaging 80 yards per game on the ground rushing. Ew! That is disgusting. When you look at their previous opponents, they lost to Texas 38-7. They lost to Central Michigan 16-14. They lost to South Florida 41-39. So 2 out of their 3 losses were by a combined 4 points. And yes, I do still think Idaho could beat this team. I think Idaho was close to beating Washington State. Look at that Washington State game. They don't look so great now, but I think this is a game that is very winnable by Idaho. What I think Idaho needs to do, I think Idaho needs to play a very similar game. Let me actually, first off, before I get into that, let me get into the defensive numbers for Idaho. Their defense, I think, is playing at a very, very high level right now. You think about that Washington State game. Now, they gave up 30 to the Tommies of St. Thomas. But then you look, they bounced back last week against Utah Tech and only gave up 6 points. So they're giving up an average of 16 points per game, 16.3 points per game defensively. teams have rushed for 103 yards per game on them, which I would say is really, really good. If a team is averaging 100 yards rushing on you, I think that's a good number. Teams are averaging 207 yards per game passing on them, so their passing defense has not been as strong as their rushing defense. And then their total defense at 310. This is like a top 15, top 20 defense in the FCS currently. If I look at the numbers, I mean, a lot of the numbers are rough to look at because not all teams have played the same number of games and not all teams have played the same level of competition. I think you got to give it a couple of weeks to look at the truth, to get the true gauge on what the statistics are on a lot of these teams. Like obviously NDSU stats are what they are because they've played, I believe they played all FCS competition and they've been beating up people. So those numbers are factual. Obviously you want to see them play better competition, but those numbers are factual. But when you look at like Idaho's stats, Idaho has played all I think comparable competition too. So I think Idaho stats are pretty accurate, but better on the ground defending the run than they are defending the pass. And that's something that they're going to have to do this week against San Jose. When you look at San Jose's numbers, you go to their team numbers, they've done 326 yards of total offense at that's their average, 246 yards passing, and 80 yards per game on the ground. I still can't believe that. They've only rushed for 194 yards in 3 games this season. In 3 games this season, they've only rushed for 194. And actually, it's only 160 because they've lost 34 yards. So they've only rushed for 160 yards this season. San Jose State has. If that doesn't tell you that Idaho is going to be able to do something against this team, don't look at any other numbers. Idaho is giving up an average of 100 yards per game on the ground. San Jose is not even averaging over 100 yards per game on the ground. They've only rushed for 160 total in 3 games. I think Idaho's going to win this game. This is going to be another FBS over FCS upset, and I think Josh Wood's going to have a field day. That is my prediction for this game. I don't need to look at any other numbers, but we're going to look at more numbers. Offensively, their leading passer, their only passer, is Walker Eggett. He's only played 2 games, so I don't know if he got hurt, if he didn't play in that first game, but they only show one quarterback on here has even thrown any passes. He's 45 for 85, 3 interceptions, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, so he hasn't had the greatest season. He's averaging 246 yards a game, though, in the 2 games he's played. Who played? Am I missing something? Who played in their game against? Let's go here. We're on the PDF. San Jose passing. He played against Texas. Did he not play in their first game? Is that what I'm seeing? Did he maybe not play in their first game? Let's go to the South Florida game. South Florida. Who was their quarterback for that South Florida game? San Jose State's quarterback was Walker Eggett for that South Florida game. Did he get hurt or something? Did this guy miss a game? Am I missing something, people? Chat, am I missing something? Here, let me go one more game. Let's go this Central Michigan game, and let's see, did Walker Eggett play? Was he hurt? Yeah, Walker Eggett has played in all the games. I don't think they've actually updated their stats here, man. Let's look at rushing. Yeah, they haven't updated their stats. Bush League! Man, come on! All these FCS websites, all these FCS team websites have updated their stats, and San Jose State is not. So maybe they've rushed for more. Maybe they're averaging more than 80 yards per game. But after 2 games, they were only averaging, and that's against Central Michigan and South Florida, who I would say is probably comparable competition. They lost the first game by 2. They lost. Oh, wait, no, that's a bowl game. Okay. They've only played 2 games this season. That's why. Which still bodes well for what I said. Averaging 80 yards per game on the ground is absolutely insanity. Please I was looking at that South Florida game, but I didn't look at the date. Tuesday, December 24th. Friday, August 29th was their first game. So they played a week 0 game. Then they played the next week. Friday, August 29th. And then they played that next week, Saturday, September 6th. And they were off. Okay, so they were off last week. Their bye week was last week. And then they're back. So they've only played 2 games. Apologies to all my Idaho Vandals people, but they're only averaging 80 yards on the ground, and they're 0-2. They lost to Texas. They lost to Central Michigan. Central Michigan beat them by 2. When you look at the numbers, Walker Eggett has thrown the ball around the town. He was 24 for 43 against Central Michigan. He threw for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. I I don't think he threw any intercept. Oh, he threw two interceptions. Rough. Danny Scudero. Woo! If you think that name looks familiar, it's because it is. That's the receiver from Sac State, Danny Scudero. He had 189 yards against Central Michigan. So that boy nice. And then running the ball, rushing on the ground, they only had 44 rushing yards against Central Michigan. And then I don't even want to look at that Texas game, but if you look at the Texas game, it's probably even less that they had on the ground. Let's look at the Texas game. They had more rushing yards. I think they had more rushing yards against Texas than they did against 75 was their net gain against against Central Michigan, and their net gain was 85. So they had 10 more rushing yards against Texas than they did against Central Michigan. Maybe Central Michigan's a playoff team this year. I don't know. But yeah, I think Idaho's gonna have a good game against these boys. I do. I'm calling the shot right now. And what I want to see from Idaho is I want to see consistency from Josh Wood. Now, obviously, if we see him throw the ball well this week, if we see him run the ball well this week, that'll be one. But I gotta see it the next week. Obviously, that'll be in Missoula. We're not going to talk about that right now, but I want to see Josh Wood have a good game. I want to see him be efficient. I want to see their defense fly around. Obviously, that's what they've been doing this year, but I think the reason that I think I could see Idaho winning this game is because it starts with the defense. Obviously, it starts with the run for them, but it also is sparked by the defense. They play good defense. They're giving up 16 points a game this year, which is really, really good. When Montana had one of the top defenses in the country in 2023, their average points per game was like 15, 16, 17, 18. They were around that number. So 16 points per game, giving up 16 points per game is a good number. That's a good number. And I want to see more of that from Idaho. I'm not going to get too much more in this game. I feel like I've broken down the numbers. I feel like I've talked about it enough. Josh Wood's got to play a good game. The defense got to play a good game. I'm still waiting on that one receiver for Idaho to break out. I'm still waiting to see a breakout receiver for Idaho. I have not seen it yet. I will still be waiting. You guys let me know when a receiver from Idaho wants to have a breakout game. You guys let me know. But I will move on. Okay. The next game we are going to be talking about is NAU versus Incarnate Word. I think this is going to be a good game. I think this is going to be a really good game. Hold up. I think this is going to be a good game, man. I think NAU just played a shootout, an absolute shootout. Who did they play last week? I can't even remember. They got in a shootout with somebody. Southern Utah, 52-49. Now, I don't know how good Southern Utah is. I honestly don't even know how good NAU is, but I think Ty Pennington threw a career high last week. He's thrown 5 touchdowns this year, only 1 interception. I mean, Ty Pennington seems to be having a pretty decent season now. How good is their defense? Their defense just gave up an astronomical amount of yardage last week. I mean, I think Southern Utah rushed for like something 300, 400 rushing yards on them. Let's go to the game-by-game statistics. Look at this Southern Utah game. Let's isolate this Southern Utah game and see what Southern Utah did against. Ty Pennington threw for 300. They rushed for 180 on the ground, which is it's good, not great. They threw for 366, obviously. The quarterback for Southern Utah threw for 269 on them. They rushed for 201. Net gain 177 on the ground, actually. And even net gain, if you're talking about NAU, they only rushed for 142 on Southern Utah, so not great. But honestly, their defense, I don't know where all the points came from for Southern Utah, because you look at, Joshua Dye, 171 rushing yards, 4 touchdowns. That boy nice. But looking at the statistics, the overall statistics, the team stats for Northern Arizona, they're averaging 36.33 yards a game, points a game. Offensively, they played Arizona State. They put up 19 on them. They played Utah Tech. They put up 38 on them. And they played Southern Utah. They put up 52 on them. And they needed 50 every freaking point of that 52. On the ground, they're averaging 131 yards per game on the ground. Through the air, they're averaging 279 yards per game through the air. So definitely more effective through the air than they are on the ground thus far this season. Total offense, they're averaging 410 yards per game. So, offensively, NAU is looking good this season. But let's look at the stats of Incarnate Word, who I also think is coming off a bye week, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think Incarnate Word played a game this past week. Let's look at I'm pulling up their stats right now. Let's look at the game-to-game. They played UT. Oh, yeah, they did. They played UTSA. They lost 40-28. Let's look at the team statistics for Incarnate Word. Offensively, it's been a big struggle for Incarnate Word this year. They beat Eastern Washington, but I don't know how good Eastern Washington is this year. I don't think Eastern Washington is going to be a team to beat. Their quarterback, Jared Taylor, went down. I think he went down in that Incarnate Word game. maybe, but I'm pretty sure he's hurt. And they put up 6 points against Nichols. They put up 31 against Eastern Washington. They put up 20 against UTSA. They're averaging 19 points a game offensively. Not great. They're averaging 60 yards a game on the ground. That is not good. If I had to pick somebody to win this NAU versus Incarnate Word game just based off that, I'm picking NAU. I mean, offensively, NAU has been everywhere. Passing the ball, they've passed for 281 yards per game through the air. They're averaging 341 yards of total offense this far this season. Let's look at the turnovers. They fumbled the ball 11 times. They've lost 5 of them. Oh my goodness. Interceptions. Let's look at the interceptions. Passing. They've thrown 5 interceptions. So 5 interceptions and 5 fumbles. It seems like this team, a lot of people were expecting this Incarnate Word team to be better than they currently are. And it just seems like they're not very disciplined. It seems like offensively, they're not as good as they were expected to be. Maybe their offensive line is not as good. Maybe their I think that's one of the biggest things too about this Incarnate Word team that I don't think a lot of people were anticipating. I think you look at the weapons they returned, you look at their offense, you look at their defense, you think, oh, this is a top 5, top 10 team locked. But you think about their quarterback position. And I talk about the quarterback position at the FCS level all the time. Cam Miller, Mark Gronowski, Tommy Mellott, big quarterbacks who meant a lot for their teams. Even if you want to take it about Clifton McDowell, say what you want about Clifton McDowell, that team is not what they were without Clifton McDowell. You need good quarterback play to be a good team. I don't think their quarterback, what's his name? Flores? Is it Flores? Torres, Richard Torres. I don't think Richard Torres is the greatest player. And the numbers wouldn't even confirm that. He's not playing bad. He's completing 68% of his passes. He has thrown 4 interceptions to 1 touchdown. That's the problem right there. Right there. You can't give the ball away more than you're throwing touchdowns, man. And then it looks like they got another guy in the game. It looks like they actually might be starting another quarterback now, maybe a redshirt freshman, EJ Colson, because he was 17 for 24 in that game against UTSA, 213 yards, 3 touchdowns. I don't even know if did Torres even play in that game? He did. He was 14 for 20, 111 yards. He threw an interception. So I think they might be looking at moving away from Torres. I guess we could probably expect to see EJ Colson in that game against NAU. But as a team, offensively, they're not great right now. And then defensively, they're giving up 29 points a game on their defensive side of things, 125.7 yards on the ground. On average, 214 yards through the air on average per game, and total defense is 339.7 yards per game. So they've had 11 touchdowns scored on them, 5.2 yards, average yards per play. I don't know. When you look at the game distribution, 20 points from Nichols, 21 from Eastern Washington, 48 from UTSA. So defensively, I don't think they're terrible. I mean, you look at that Nichols game, I think their defense played fine. I think it was really their offense not able to get anything going that really hurt them. But back to NAU. Let's look at NAU's defense. NAU's defense has not been great either. Game by game, if you want to look at it, Arizona State scored 38, Utah Tech scored 31, and Southern Utah scored 49. I mean, this defense, for what they were last year, for the ability that they had to get to the rush the passer, to take the ball away, Alex McLaughlin, All-American, I mean, all that. They're giving up 39 points a game so far this season. 39 points a game. And you can't even say that Arizona State game is an outlier, because I would say they honestly didn't give up that much to Arizona State. It was a 2-3 possession game against Arizona State. Utah Tech scored 31 on them. Southern Utah scored 49 on them. So that's where the focus really needs to be. Defensively, they're giving up, teams are averaging 178.7 yards per game on the ground on them. Through the air, teams are averaging 220.67 yards per game through the air. And total defense is 399.3 yards. That is astronomical. You're giving up an average of 400 yards per game to anybody who steps in or steps in their stadium, or you step in their stadium. That's not good, man. That's not good. So I think we're going to see a really, really good game against NAU and Incarnate Word. I predict that it's going to be a really, really good game. I think it's going to be a really, really good game. Ty Pennington has been able to throw the ball all over the place. Richard Torres has not been able to throw the ball over the place, depending on who they play, him or EJ Colson. I think the Northern Arizona defense is going to give Incarnate Word some life. Like, I think they're going to be able to get things going against that Northern Arizona defense. So I think we're going to see a high scoring game similar to how we saw against Southern Utah. But I would pick Northern Arizona to win this game. And the reason I pick Northern Arizona to win this game is the rushing number right here. They're averaging 60 yards per game on the ground. Incarnate Word is 60. I mean, You got to be able to run the ball, man. You got to be able to run the ball to be able to run the clock down. I mean, the running the ball is so important to any offense. If you can't do it, I think you're limited significantly. So NAU's my pick. I don't have any keys to the victory, but you heard the numbers. Incarnate Word's offense, not great. Their defense, not great. NAU's offense, great. Their defense, not great. I'm picking NAU to win this game. You guys let me know what you think down below, and I will move on. Okay, next we are looking at Sac State versus Central Arkansas. I think this is another game that could be a really good game. Central Arkansas is 1-2. Sac State is 1-2. Obviously, we're going to continue to talk about Sac State. They were my pick for the conference. I think that pick is dead. Somebody finally called me out on X today, as I should have been called out. Dog shit pick by me. Terrible, terrible pick by me. Apologies. First year voting in the poll. I will be better going forward. I'm sorry. But I did pick Sac State to win the Big Sky Conference. I don't think that's going to pan out. Now, after seeing a lot of the teams in the Big Sky Conference, I don't think it's as far as a discrepancy as a lot of people would like it to be. But I do think there's a discrepancy. I do think Montana State's better. I do think Montana's better. I do think UC Davis is currently better. I do think Idaho is better than Sac State right now. I don't think NAU is better, though. I don't think NAU is better. But we don't need to get into that right now. There's another video for another day that we can get into that. By the numbers, let's look at this Sac State team. 23 points per game, 173 yards per game on the ground, which honestly, for what that offense wants to be, is not really where I think they should be. 173 yards per game on the ground. Through the air, they're averaging 171 yards per game through the air. I will say this about Sac State. I think they found something with Cardell Williams. I definitely think they found something with Cardell Williams. Total offense, 344 yards per game of offense. Defensively, outside of rushing the passer, this Sac State team has been not great defensively. I'm trying to look at the sack numbers. Sacks, they have 10 sacks. And so this is under Sac State. Does that mean they've taken 10 sacks for 60 yards? Do they have 5 sacks? No, I think they got 10 sacks. 10 sacks is pretty dang good. Third down efficiency is 26%. Fourth down efficiency is 40%. That third down efficiency, 26%, is freaking terrible. I mean, you look at the offensive numbers from this Sac State team, some would think this team is probably 0-3. Obviously, they've been able to move the ball a decent amount, but 23 points per game is not great. Obviously, that South Dakota State game, they only put up, they only put up 3, right? Was it 20-3, that final score of that game? I believe so. I got it right here. It was 20-3, yeah, the final score of that game. But man, I think outside of being able to rush the passer, this Sac State defense has been gotten BTA from virtually everybody they played. South Dakota State put up 20 points on them. That was the first game of the season. Very sloppy game. They still won 20-3. Nevada put up 20 points on them, 20-17. That's a game that I think Sac State should have won. And then you got Mercyhurst, who put up 28 on them, and at one point had a 2-possession lead on Sac State. The Sac State team is all over the place. I was glad to see them get a victory against Mercyhurst. That's a team they should be better than. It's no disrespect to the NEC, but no NEC team should ever be able to hang with the Big Sky team. If you guys take that to heart, please do. Take it personally, get better, and come beat some Big Sky teams. It will be better for the FCS, I promise you. Defensively, they're giving up 22 points a game. So offensively and defensively, they're basically the same. 199 yards per game rushing is what they're giving up. 204 yards passing is what they're giving up through the air. Total defense is 404 yards per game of total defense. That seems kind of crazy to me. Giving up 400 yards a game to each opponent that steps into Sacramento or you go to their stadium. Not great, man. Not great. Let's look at the numbers for Central Arkansas. Central Arkansas's offense has been struggling this year. Struggling. It seems like this trying to pull up their stats, and for some reason, Central Arkansas's website is not being friendly to me. Let me see if I can pull it up again. Let's try this again. Here we go. Game by game, they played Missouri. They lost 61-6. Obviously, that's an outlier. Then they played Arkansas Pine Bluff. They won 41-17. Then they played Tarleton State. They got beat down 56-10. And that is why a lot of people think this Tarleton State team is nothing to be played with. They beat a team that was fringe playoff last year, 56-10. They've been beating up everybody. They've been dominating everybody. But we're not talking about Tarleton State right now. We're talking about Central Arkansas. Opponents are scoring an average of 44.67 points a game on Central Arkansas. Rushing yards, 168 yards per game rushing against Central Arkansas, 248.67 yards per game passing against Central Arkansas. Their total defense is 416.7 yards per game. I am taking Sac State to win this game. Why? Because Sac State can run the ball. They showed that last week against Mercyhurst, 350 yards rushing, 5 rushing touchdowns. I mean, I think they found something. Defensively, they need to figure it out. Their secondary needs to figure it out. They're giving up way too many yards through the air. You look at their passing defense, and they were torched last week. They were absolutely torched last week. You look at that game against Mercyhurst. Mercyhurst quarterback, I think, threw for 300 yards. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Let's go individual. Their quarterback threw 280, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They rushed for 89 yards on the ground, but they had 280 passing yards. So not necessarily what you want to see. I think Montana gave the exact same numbers up last week, similar numbers last week to North Dakota. A better team than Central Arkansas, but nonetheless, they gave up the same numbers. 19 points per game is what Central Arkansas offense is scoring. 201 yards on the ground average, and then 177 yards through the air. Total offense is 378.3 yards per game. Not great, not terrible. They're probably middle of the pack with that, but 19 points a game is not great. Obviously, it's heavily weighted, but it's not even heavily weighted by that Missouri game because they played Tarleton State and got beat 56-10. So they put up 16 points in 2 games. Outside of those 2 games, they put up 41 against an HBCU team. I don't know if even Arkansas Pine Bluff. Is Arkansas Pine Bluff? I don't believe they're SWAC or MEAC, I think. I don't want to say anything wrong, so I'm not going to say anything else about Arkansas Pine Bluff. Arkansas Pine Bluff is who they put up most of their points against. So what do I want to see against Sac State? What do I want to see from Sac State in this game? I would love to see Cardell Williams. Don't put Jaden Rashada in. And that's not even anything against Jaden Rashada. This is Cardell Williams' team. I'm declaring it right now that the Sac State Hornets, that's Cardell Williams' team for the 2025 season. You can reevaluate in the offseason. You can reevaluate it in spring ball. But currently, what I've seen with my 2 eyes, I've watched all the games. Cardell Williams has looked the best in this offense. He's run the best. He's run this offense the best. When you look at the individual statistics, you look at the passing statistics. Cardell Williams is completing 61% of his passes. Jaden Rashada is completing 40% of his passes. Obviously, he got hurt, but he's 13 for 33. 1 interception, no touchdown passes. Cardell Williams has completing 61% of his passes, 3 touchdown passes, 1 interception. Let's go to rushing. Jaden Rashada, I think, has negative rushing yards on the season. He's got a -4 rushing yards on the season. Cardell Williams is their 3rd leading rusher with a net of 77 rushing yards on 4.5 yards a carry. 1 touchdown. This is Cardell Williams' team. I don't want to see Jaden Rashada. Do not put Jaden Rashada in there. That's no offense to him. You're not the guy. You are not the guy. Receivers. Ernest Campbell is their leading receiver currently with 167 yards on 5 receptions. He's averaging 33 yards a reception. What? That's crazy. 2 touchdowns. He's averaging 83.5 yards a game. Jordan Williams and Jordan Anderson are 2 other receivers. I think Jordan Williams is actually a tight end. Let me see. Yeah, he's actually a tight end. Jordan Williams is their tight end. He's their 2nd leading receiver with 97 yards, 1 touchdown. And then you have Jordan Anderson, 91 yards, no touchdowns. But they haven't really been throwing the ball around a ton. Sac State really wants to run the ball with that offense. They want to run the ball. They're taking shots down the field. That's why Ernest Campbell has an average of 33.4 yards a catch, because when Sac State is throwing the ball, they're looking to throw the ball deep. They're going to run, play action, deep shot. That's what they do. That's the go-go offense at its core. But Sac State needs to win this game. I expect Sac State to win this game. I think it could be a closer game, but I think Sac State will probably win this game similar to how they did Mercyhurst, 2-3 score. They'll win by 2-3 scores. I don't think it'll be a blowout. If it is a blowout, good for them. They need one of those. But if it's not a blowout, I think I don't expect it to be a blowout. I think it'll be a 2-score game. I think it could be competitive as well. I mean, I don't know much about Central Arkansas, but I think it could be a competitive game. But 2 1-2 teams facing off. Start Cardell Williams. Don't put Jaden Rashada in the game. His opportunities this season are gone unless Cardell Williams gets hurt. We do not want that to happen, but if that does happen, that's when Jaden Rashada gets put in the game. He does not run the offense the way it should be run. Cardell Williams is the guy. That's all I got to say about the Sac State Central Arkansas game. I think it could be close. I don't think it'll be super close. And you guys know I've been the prophet with these games. I told you about NAU Southern Utah. I told you about Sac State Mercyhurst. I told you about Montana and UND. That was a ranked matchup. Everybody knew about that one. I told you about Montana State San Diego. I didn't really talk about that one because I knew it was gonna be a blowout. But listen to me when I tell you what these games are gonna look like. Pay attention. But you guys let me know what you think about that, and I will move on. Okay, the last game I would love to look at is UC Davis versus Southern Utah. It's been a couple of weeks since we've seen UC Davis. UC Davis has only played 2 games. Should have been 3. They played Mercer. They were winning. It was a close game late. I would have loved to see the finish to that game. We didn't get it though. So UC Davis is currently 1-1. Would have probably been 2-1, but they're 1-1. One victory against Utah Tech, a close victory. And that's why I'm really excited to see this game against Southern Utah, because the last time we saw this Utah Tech team against an FCS opponent, they struggled. And mind you, Caden Pennick has still only played, he still has only played 3 games, 2 against FCS competition. So Caden Pennick is still learning. That offense is still learning how to gel together. I think the run game is where they make their bread is buttered. But 2 games, we only have 2 games of statistics. So take these stats with a grain of salt. 20.5 points per game offensively, 120 average points per 120 yards per game on the ground average, 197 yards per game through the air passing. So Caden Pennick has done a really good job of being able to pass the ball. Caden Pennick is currently 29-47, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He's completing 61.7% of his passes. For a freshman, I think that's pretty decent statistics. Jordan Fisher is their leading rusher. He's rushed for 117 yards on 21 carries. He's averaging 5.6 yards a carry. Mateo Perez is averaging 7 yards a carry, and Carter Vargas is averaging 5.9 yards a carry. Jordan Fisher is the only one with a rushing touchdown so far this season for this UC Davis squad. That will get fixed, I believe, this week. But looking at the defensive statistics, gosh, what am I talking about, man? So obviously, like I said, take these stats with a grain of salt because they played 2 games. And 1 game was 70-10 against Washington. I mean, come on. They're giving up 47 points per game defensively. That would probably rank last in the FCS if that was an actual number. But obviously, they have a game that didn't count, and they played an FBS opponent. So take that for what it is. Yards per game rushing, they're giving up 202 yards per game rushing. I mean, I'm not even going to read off these stats. Let's look at Southern Utah's numbers. Those numbers are not good. One, because they had a game canceled or no contest or whatever, and then they played UW. I mean, you're not going to get realistic numbers from looking at UC Davis numbers. Points per game, Southern Utah now, offensively, they have been a wagon. 40.67 points per game offensively, while also giving up 35 points a game defensively. On the ground, rushing, they're averaging 194 yards per game on the ground, and that is what they want to do. And they're going to do it. They want to run the ball at Southern Utah. They want to be a ground and pound football team. Their runner last week just had 175 yards with 4 touchdowns. Their rusher from last year had 1,900 rushing yards through the air. They're averaging 279 yards per game through the air. I mean, offensively, this is an offensive wagon of a team right now. Let's look at their game-by-game stats for Southern Utah. Idaho State, they won 46-24. San Diego, they lost 27-30. I think that game might have went in overtime. Northern Arizona, they lost 49-52. So this team has not scored under 27 points once this season. They've only scored under 30 once this season, 2 out of their 3 games. So what they're going to do is put up points. They are going to test that defense of UC Davis, and they're going to see what you got. And this is a UC Davis defense that gave up 24 points to Utah Tech, so keep that in mind. They gave up 70 to UW, but obviously they only gave up 17 to Mercer. But looking back and looking at Mercer where they're at right now, let's look up Mercer football schedule. I don't think Mercer has had a great season, man. I don't think they have. Mercer currently, they beat Wofford last week, 22-21 by 1 point. They lost to Presbyterian 15-10, and then the game against UC Davis got canceled. So they played 3 games, 2 games technically, and they've won their 1 victory by 1 point. They lost to a Presbyterian team who I believe is a newer team in the FCS. They lost by 5. So I mean, when you look at UC Davis right now, they don't have a very strong resume. They were losing the lead to Mercer. The Mercer was on the come up. They were coming back. They were almost ready to lose to Utah Tech, who I believe Utah Tech is defeated right now. Let's look up Utah Tech. I know I keep having to do I know I keep looking stuff up, but let's look at Utah Tech. I think Utah Tech is defeated right now. They lost to Northern Arizona. They lost to Idaho. They lost to UC Davis. And then their last game last year. Yeah, so Utah Tech is over right now. And UC Davis almost lost to them. So I think UC Davis is a good team. I think they got good talent, but you got to show it. You got to show it. I think this is going to be a really good test, and I think this is going to be a really, really good game. Because I think that Southern Utah offense is going to test the hell out of UC Davis's defense. I think they're going to hit them from a bunch of different angles, and I think UC Davis is going to have to be ready for everything. I think they're going to have to make a very, very strong effort to stop the run. I'm sure that's something that they've talked about all week. Stop the run, tackle well, tackle well, tackle well, tackle well, tackle well. You must tackle well. Let's look at the Southern Utah defense. 35 points a game is what they're giving up. Southern Utah defense, 153 yards per game on the ground. 256 yards per game through the air. Total defense is 409. I didn't even mention the total offensive use of Southern Utah. 473 average yards per game of total offense. That is insane, man. Almost 500 yards of offense total. I mean, this Southern Utah offense is good. They are good, and they're going to test UC Davis. But UC Davis's offense also has to test this defense. They're giving up 35 points a game. They're giving up 153 yards per game on the ground. What is UC Davis averaging on the ground? Jaded stats, but they're averaging 120 on the ground right now. So below that Southern Utah average, 256 through the air. UC Davis is averaging 197.5 through the air. So I don't know. I want to see Caden Pennick play a good game. Let's look at the individual statistics of UC Davis. Let's go to Caden Pennick game by game. Let's look up Utah Tech versus Southern Utah, versus UC Davis. That's really the best barometer to judge how Caden Pennick has played. 21 for 31, 253 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. He did take 6 sacks in that game. That was the problem right there. And he rushed for 41 yards, 14 yards in that game. He took 6 sacks. That's exactly what that is. His gain was 41 gained yards on the ground, but his net was 14. Obviously, because sacks are a rushing statistic in college. I think it's dumb, but that's how it is. But yeah, Caden Pennick is where everything's going to start and finish for this UC Davis offense on Saturday. I think he has to have a really good game. I think Rex Connors and Porter Connors got to lead that defense and fly around. At times, this defense has looked inconsistent. That is a direct reflection on what happened in that Utah Tech game. They play well at times. They don't play well all the time. And those times that they don't play well, usually teams are capitalizing on it. You look at that Mercer game. You look at that Utah Tech game. They're inconsistent defensively. They have to play a full game defensively. Caden Pennick has to play a full game offensively. And that offensive line has to be one of the best offensive lines in the conference, which is what they were billed to be at the start of the season. I don't know if they've necessarily lived up to that. When your quarterback takes 6 sacks in the game, you cannot be one of the better offensive lines in the country or in the conference. That just can't happen. They got to protect Caden Pennick better. Caden Pennick's got to stay consistent, stay strong, and then that defense got to show up, because this offense of Southern Utah has not taken a day off yet, and I don't think they plan on it. So I think, honestly, looking at this Southern Utah UC Davis game in the Big Sky Conference, that's my game of the week. Southern Utah versus UC Davis. I want to see what UC Davis looks like. I want to see what future Big Sky foe Southern Utah looks like. And I think they're going to get tested. If UC Davis is one of the top teams in the Big Sky Conference, they will prove it this weekend. If they're not, they will also prove it this weekend. But Southern Utah, UC Davis is a game to watch for me. It's going to be the top game in the conference this week. If I look at all the other games on the schedule, you got Mercyhurst, Montana State. You got Montana versus Indiana State. You got Idaho, San Jose State. That could be a good one. NAU versus Incarnate Word. That is going to be a good game. Sac State versus Central Arkansas could be good. But UC Davis, Southern Utah is the game of the week in the Big Sky Conference. Remember, I said this because when you're watching a one-score game with 5 minutes left in that game in the fourth quarter, you're going to think, man, Sammy said exactly what this game was going to be, and it is exactly that. So you guys let me know what you think about that Southern Utah UC Davis game. Are you excited about it? What do you think they need to do to win? Are you not excited about it? Do you think UC Davis are frauds? Let me know in the comments down below, and I will move on. Okay, I want to thank you guys so much for tapping into my channel this week. This is Akem'S Analysis. We break down all the games. We do breakdown, so come tune in on Mondays, Tuesdays when I'm dropping my breakdowns. We do a recap. Keenan Curran has been appearing with me on my recaps. Those drop on Mondays. And then Thursdays, we have our preview show, which is when this is dropping. So stay tuned in for all the great content. Tailgate tour is going on and on. I've been interviewing fans at the tailgates, and it's been really fun. It's been really fun catching up with the fans. I caught up with some students last week. The GFPA was out, the Grizzly Football Players Association. It's a player run by players for the players. They're doing a lot of things to help out future Grizz, former Grizz players. When you get out of the uniform, they're ready for you, ready to help you get jobs, ready to help you push you into the workforce, ready to do whatever they want, whatever they can to help you. Building a brotherhood. The Montana football team is a brotherhood, whether you're a current brother or a past brother, and that's what the GFPA is about. So please go check them out. I had DJ Coulter on the tailgate tour. He was breaking all down what the Grizzly Football Players Association is. So go check that out. I appreciate you guys so much for tapping into the channel. We are criminally close to 2,000 subscribers, and I need you guys to push me over the edge. So subscribe to the channel if you guys appreciate my breakdowns, if you guys appreciate Akem'S analysis. Thank you guys so much. I will catch you guys on Monday for our recap of week 4. It has been a great video today. Thank you guys so much. I will see you later.